think about it. Van Damme ×2.
He looks exactly like you.
Me? Twin brothers reunited on a mission. Watch my back. To avenge their parents' death.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to my review for the 1991 Jean-Claude Van Damme action film Double Impact. The film is directed by Sheldon Lettish and it stars of course Jean-Claude Van Damme. We have Geoffrey Lewis, Alona Shaw, Corina Everson, Philip Chan, Alan Scarf and Bolo Young. Now this film focuses on Van Damme playing twins. We've got Chad and Alex. Now we get a sequence at the beginning of the film over in Asia. Chad and Alex's parents, the father is a businessman, there's a big bridge being opened, loads of people are financing it, and his parents are literally killed. And Geoffrey Lewis, who plays the bodyguard of his dad, Frank, manages to get both the babies away to safety. However, one of the children stays in Asia and the other one goes back to America with Frank. 25 years later, Frank reveals everything to Chad, I think it's Chad, in America, that he's got a twin brother and that they should head back to Asia to reclaim his father's legacy. However, the criminal elements over there responsible for the death of his parents are not going to take this lying down. Right, what are my thoughts on Double Impact? Well, I put a choice up for you guys on YouTube what action film you wanted to see next, and this was the overwhelming winner. So here we are. Now, Double Impact, I remember when this came out at the time, Jean-Claude Van Damme was really developing and growing into a top star in regards to martial arts action films. And the idea, and this was another film that was featured very heavily on the action magazine Impact. The idea of him playing twins was intriguing. And that was really the big sell and the big pull or draw for this film. 2 times Van Damme, and for the most part that actually does work quite well. Now some of the effects haven't aged brilliantly, especially the scenes where they kind of sit down together. You can clearly see that technology at the time didn't kind of make that look as seamless as it probably would today. And there's some scenes like when they're hugging or when they're fighting, when you can tell the body doubles and stuff here and there. But I think for the time, 1991, it works quite well, and they do try and give Van Damme 2 distinctive styles. You've got Chad, who's the more stylish, he's got fancy shirts, he's got a nice tidy haircut, all this kind of stuff, very Americanized. And you've got Alex, who has been raised on the streets of Asia. He's got his hair slicked back. He's a little bit bulkier and he's a bit more streetwise, and he's got a shorter fuse sort of thing. So they do try and give Van Damme 2 distinct personalities to work with here. And to say this was quite early in his career, Van Damme still, and acting was still never his, you could argue even now today, it's still never his strong point. It does manage to deliver 2 individual performances for Alex and Chad. I think occasionally he overacts, but you can forgive it. You know what I mean? We're not watching like a drama here. We are watching, a martial arts action film with, a guy with limited acting ability at the time trying to pull off 2 characters. And I think he succeeds for the most part. It does work. I think one of the things I really liked about this film at the time and still is Geoffrey Lewis. Now, if you don't know who Geoffrey Lewis is, you probably don't watch a lot of Clint Eastwood films. He was, for me, he was in a lot of Clint Eastwood films, especially the Every Which Way But Loose films with Clint Eastwood, but he did a few westerns and things like that. Sometimes he played bad guys, sometimes he played good guys. But I've always liked Geoffrey Lewis. He's got great comedy timing if he is doing a comedy, but he's also a very, very good actor. Sorry, the cat just knocked off my thing there. So he's a very, very good actor. And I've always been a big fan of his. So it was great to see Geoffrey Lewis in this film. And he really, I think, does lift up this film, I think, elevates it. You know, he's kind of the acting glue that keeps the film going. And we've got Alona Shaw. Now, I couldn't tell you anything else that she's been in, but I remember at the time when I saw Alona Shaw in this film, wow, stunning. All them years ago, and even now, I mean, you look, when you watch it again, absolutely beautiful. What a beautiful woman. Great. What else could you say? Her acting. But she looks absolutely fabulous in this film. And it's great. It was great as well, and it was exciting at the time to see Bolo Young back as the villain for Van Damme. You know, and many of you will obviously know and recognise him as the villain, Chong Li from Bloodsport. Chong Li, sorry. Great villain. Works really, really well in this film. You get some... I think one of the things that I think kind of stops this film from being really great, I think, is it starts off with a great premise. You know, the setup, his parents getting killed, the two twins being split up and taken to different parts of the world, sort of thing. Great setup. And then the reintroduction of the twins, you know, works pretty well. So I think the setup of the first quarter of the film works, I think, excellent. The action scenes I can't fault throughout the film. They're just exactly what you would want and hope for. They're very, very good indeed. Is the story, once it's established that they've gone to Asia to try and get revenge on the people that killed his parents, it just kind of jumps from action scene to action scene. You know what I mean? They'll turn up at the club delivering alcohol, liqueur, whatever it is. Or they'll turn up on a boat and do this or do that. And it's just like action scene to action scene to action scene. There's kind of nothing that really sews all the narrative together. And again, at the time, probably when I was younger, I didn't care. At the time, watching it now, and it's a long time since I've seen this film, when I rewatched this very recently for this review, you're just kind of like, yeah, there's no real substance to the film. It's got that draw of two Van Dammes. It's got some great action scenes, and they are very, very good and very, very entertaining. But beyond that, it's empty. There's very little here to recommend in regards to the writings. The dialogue is pretty cringy at times, and certainly the story and the narrative. Sometimes it's good to have a simple story and premise, but you also need to have a credible reason for characters to be in a certain scenario or a certain situation, and this film doesn't always give a credible reason. They're just there, and then an action scene will begin, sort of thing. But that's me being overly critical, I suppose. I do think this is a fine Van Damme film. He was starting to take his career into into more polished films, sort of thing. And it did at the time, and still does feel a very polished film. Some of his earlier films were obviously action classics, you know, your kickboxings and your blood sports, but this was kind of level up in regards to production values, and it was starting to lead him down the real path of like superstardom in regards to martial arts action hero persona. So yeah, Double Impact, a very, very fine Van Damme film. If you've never seen it and you like martial art action films or you like Van Damme, definitely want to check out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Just don't go into it thinking you're getting a masterpiece, because, to be honest, you never are with these type of films. Whether it be Chuck Norris, whether it be Van Damme, or many of the others, you're never going to get masterpieces, really. But quite a lot of the times, you will certainly be entertained. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.